bad. Good.
Welcome everyone to season 3, episode 77 of the Premier Pod. I'm your host Yash Bika, joined by my co-host Tyler Chan. We are finally, officially in the first episode of season 3. A little bit different than seasons 1 and 2. We just kind of wanted to list out a couple of our goals and such for this new season. First of all, the Premier League is back. So back from like the coronavirus, I guess, pandemic. The pandemic is still ongoing, but the leagues, all the European leagues are officially back on, and we're super excited, and we felt like it was kind of a good time to give us a fresh start, and that's why you didn't see any episodes for us for the past 2 weeks, getting new equipment for the podcast, but also kind of giving our minds a refresher, because usually around this time is when the season dwindles down, and we kind of have that off season to kind of prepare for players, coaches, and for us, we kind of prepare with new topics and ideas. And because with everything that's going on, we decided to use those 2 weeks to kind of prep our minds and just take a little bit of a relaxing break and get stuck in until for the rest of the season. So a couple of things we wanted to kind of mention is for season 3, we definitely want to try to bring on more guests to the show, sort of like what we saw with Lizzie and Kevin Egan. We want to kind of bring on those unique voices that can kind of bring some unique stories and perspectives to the show. They definitely, we just want to bring in people from all walks of life. They don't have to be, play-by-play commentators for a professional team, but people that can offer a unique perspective in the soccer world, I would say. And we definitely want to kind of showcase our personalities more and just be a little bit more laid back. I think you kind of saw, if you've listened to us since season 1, we had the formula of kind of going and doing recaps of games. Although we still want to talk about big ideas and big topics, we want to start picking out topics and talking points that kind of matter to us a lot more, or things that we kind of notice more than, just going down the list of games and just kind of recapping what's going on. So we want to provide more of that type of commentary, that more banter, back and forth type of deal. And we're hoping we can kind of bring that for season 3. So I'll let Tyler speak, because I've been on a little bit of a spiel right now.
So basically, Project Restart of the Premier League, also
Yes.
Project Restart for the Premier Pod as well. But basically, Yash kind of hit a spot on for everything we want to do in terms of goals and what we want to do moving forward with the Premier Pod, because also now officially, as Yash mentioned in one of the previous episodes near the end of season 2, we are now both graduates from college. So now we're just both in the working world. And Yash kind of just talked to me one day and was like, you know what? Let's go all in on the pod. Let's go change it up and kind of go into a new direction. I was like, you know what? I'm down. Let's go for it. So we got new gear. Yash is on a Mac now, and I got a stand for my mic so I don't have to bend over when I speak.
I know it's the little changes. We're slowly getting there.
Oh, the Mac's a pretty big change, but
yeah, the Mac's a big change, but the mics and everything, we're slowly getting there.
There you go. Now we're slowly getting out of like the struggle phase of our setups.
Yes, we're trying to make it more of a seamless process in terms of recording and just getting the episodes out quicker. So we're hoping with all these new changes that we're putting in place for this new season, it will mean better content for you guys, and the content will actually come out quicker and such for you guys to listen to. So those are the goals. So, you guys are the fans, so hold us accountable to them if you ever feel us slacking and such.
And also we'll keep experimenting on different ideas, such as like video podcasts, or just any feedback we get from Twitter posts or comments, just anything. We'll think about it and then we'll, try it out, because season 3 would be the time to experiment or like to try new things.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like Tyler mentioned, we're going to try to do experiment more with a video now that I have a laptop that is capable enough of doing like very, video editing and such. So I definitely want to give those things a try and do a little bit more with those and experiment with new things. But yeah, I'm looking forward to season 3. To kick off the episode, we do have some great news. Obviously, the Premier League was started yesterday, the Project Restart, but huge news in the transfer sense of things. Chelsea officially signing Timo Werner for a fee of 50 million euros from RB Leipzig. They paid his release clause, I believe. And it is quite breaking news and also crazy news because for the longest time, it almost felt like Liverpool were the guaranteed, people that were going to sign Timo Werner. It just seemed like it was a foregone conclusion because Werner likes Klopp. Klopp is German. Liverpool and Dortmund kind of, or not, I meant to say Dortmund, but Liverpool have brought in German players before with Naby Keita, and Werner has gone on record and talked about how great of a coach Klopp is, and the atmosphere and the culture he kind of likes, and the style of play he kind of likens to Jurgen Klopp. But Frank Lampard comes in and Chelsea come in, swoop him up, and they basically stole Timo Werner right underneath Liverpool's eyes. So, Tyler, you're the Liverpool fan, so I know you were a little disappointed when the news came out that Liverpool couldn't sign him. But other than that, what are some of your initial reactions from that breaking news that Chelsea have officially signed the German striker?
It was a little surprising, in particular, to hear Chelsea is going to be the team that ultimately comes through with Timo Werner, because Chelsea wasn't really linked with Werner for the longest time, or if they were, it wasn't that loud. It was just like, oh, maybe. But yeah. I think literally it's been Liverpool links the last 6 months, and then ultimately Chelsea decided to take a step forward and just like snatch from Liverpool this move. And I think Liverpool ultimately decided not to go in with Werner because although the release clause is around 50 million, which seemed like a good price for the player that they're getting, I believe Werner is getting a wage of around like 200 million pounds a week, which would be the same as Liverpool's top paid player right now, which is Mohamed Salah, which is the same wage. So I think that would have caused some slight unrest in the locker room if that was the actual case, if Liverpool needed to match or even beat Chelsea's contract. So Werner getting this contract is pretty insane. That's a huge contract. So he's expected to be the front line man for Chelsea, which means that might be some issues for Tammy Abraham, the current number 9 striker for Chelsea, or maybe that might spell something for Frank Lampard to change how he's going to set up the team. He might have 2 strikers, or maybe move Werner to a winger position. But as a Liverpool fan, hearing this, it was a little rough because Werner would have fit in pretty well in terms of just the pure pace he has. He would fit in really well with that gang and press, and also just how quickly Liverpool could counterattack. So losing that is a bit hard to hear. It's just now, who are Liverpool going to get instead? There's been a lot of links also of possibly getting Coutinho back. Coutinho's been kind of crying to get back to Liverpool, been apparently being really remorseful for moving away. But I mean, as Lizzie kind of pointed out in the last episode, kind of don't want him back. We've moved on. We've kind of shown that we can build a pretty good team without Coutinho. We don't really necessarily need him. It'd be good to have, but we can have other better players possibly come in for less expensive costs, because he's still worth around 67 million pounds, which is insane. And his contract, I believe, is still even higher than Werner's. So he would have to take a massive pay cut. But for now, if I were to pick any player, and I know we kind of mentioned this in the last episode, but I mean, I know we might be potentially linked to certain other players like Adama Traore, and I'd rather have Traore.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So, ultimately, if we miss out on Werner, which we are, and I don't know about Coutinho, hopefully there are other players out there like Traore that can fill that void. But we still do need players coming in. Or I don't know if Klopp is looking to actually ascend those academy players like Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, giving them more of a starting chance, because even in these practice games leading up to the season or leading back to the Project Restart, he has been playing them in these, 11v11 Liverpool versus Liverpool kind of practice matches. So that might be the case, because, once you see Lallana, Shaqiri, all these kind of players leave, someone else is going to have to take their spots. So it might be these Liverpool Academy players.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting, because when Chelsea initially agreed the release clause free, Liverpool actually had, I think, 48 hours or so to match it, and no offer ever came in for Liverpool. So I think what you're saying is correct. Probably the transfer fee or the wage bill that Werner and his agent were probably asking for was just way too high for Liverpool standards. But I think this is pretty crazy for Chelsea because, you had a guy like Tammy Abraham who a lot of Chelsea fans, because I made a graphic for Abraham, and a lot of Chelsea fans agreed that, if he just gets a little bit more consistent, he can be a really good player and a really good striker. And they were kind of saying they would prefer to have someone maybe a little bit lesser than him on the bench rather than a full, straight up new number 9. But this is definitely going to be interesting because you have a guy, Tammy Abraham, who was, kind of a product of their youth system, and he's performed decently well for a debut campaign for Chelsea as the number 9 striker. And now you bring in a guy like Werner. I don't know how much that will impact Abraham's, growth, and I don't know how much unrest that would cause him because he'll basically essentially be losing his starting job because speaking apples to apples, Werner is a better striker than Tammy Abraham. So it'll be interesting, even though they do kind of offer two different style of plays. Like Abraham's much more, he's taller, he's a little bit more physical, can hold up the ball, while Werner's like, that pacey striker that can get behind defenders. But Chelsea are not done there because they are targeting Ben Chilwell as their top left back prospect. And all the reports that I'm seeing is they're really aggressively poking at Leicester and trying to sign him for a fee. And I think Leicester have set a good precedence because they sold Harry Maguire for a world record fee, and I wouldn't expect them to let go of Ben Chilwell with anything other than a huge sum of cash. So I think for Leicester, they'll have plenty of cash to kind of play around with if they do end up selling Chilwell. But another interesting signing that Chelsea could be trying to get is Kai Havertz, because as Chelsea announced the signing of Timo Werner, someone posted on Twitter announce Havertz, and Havertz actually liked it, and he unliked the post maybe a couple hours later. So, I mean, if Chelsea can go in one transfer window, get Ziyech, Werner, Havertz, and Ben Chilwell all in one transfer window, that's probably one of the best transfer windows, like best transfer coups of all time. Just
That's
those
insane.
4 players alone. That's insane.
What, like literally Chelsea, where's all this money coming from?
I have no idea.
I mean, they didn't buy any players last summer due to the transfer ban, and they chose not to buy any players in the January transfer window. But
yes,
still, this is a significant sum of money, and Abramovich, maybe he's made some more money or something. But this is a big move in terms of the starting 11 for Chelsea too, because ultimately bringing in all these players means that players would have to leave the team too. So yes. I guess that would mean, like Pedro in particular is probably one of the key players.
Like Giroud, I would say, like with Werner coming in, there's no point of keeping Giroud, or maybe is Batshuayi still on Chelsea?
Yeah, Batshuayi is also still there.
I mean, it probably makes no sense to keep those 2 players anymore, so you get rid of those. Tyler and I were talking before the episode. We think all these signings are great for Chelsea. The only flaw is they really improve the forward and attacking positions, and they improve the defense, obviously, with Chilwell, but we think that one of Chelsea's biggest weakness is their midfield, because right now it's just Konte, Kovacic, and Jorginho. While Konte obviously is exceptional as a defensive mid and holding midfielder, Jorginho and Kovacic, I would say, are not average. I would say they're a little bit above average, but they're definitely not of the same quality of a Pogba, Fernandes, a Wijnaldum and such that these other Premier League clubs have in terms of their midfield depth. So I think, signing a guy like Havertz, the place in the midfield, I think he would increase the quality of the midfield and just the attacking talent that Chelsea have available. So if they pull off Havertz, I think that'll probably be the most important signing out of the 2. If they were to target Chilwell or Havertz, I think if they get Havertz, I think it's like game over. I think that attack will be deadly.
They're literally going to be set up for the future too, because Havertz is literally younger than both of us. So, geez. But even then,
Werner's like what, 23, 24?
Like 22? Same age as me, I think, like 24. Okay. But geez, man, Chelsea's setting up for the future, and with Pulisic as well. I mean,
and they do have got Mason Mount. They have Mason Mount, Reece James, right?
As right back.
Rudiger. I mean, Rudiger's kind of old, like not old, but he's in his prime. And then they have Tomori, young center back. I mean, they have we always made jokes about Chelsea just loaning out their youth players or selling them off. Like, they had so many, but I think they're finally starting to realize their mistakes and just using them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, man, Chelsea just seem very scary right now.
And even if they don't get Kai Havertz, they still have so many players in depth that are youth players that are on the rise, such as, Hudson-Odoi. Is Loftus-Cheek still on the team? I mean, you can use him. And then Ross Barkley, he can still come through every once in a while. And then like Ziyech, you can play that Havertz role if Havertz doesn't come too. So
I know. Gosh. And it's crazy. They signed Ziyech and Werner before the transfer window even opened. I mean, that's some good business, I would say, to get those deals done without even having the window officially open.
That's true. And I guess they just have the promise of Champions League ready to go because although it's not necessarily guaranteed, they're all coming to Chelsea anyway. Because Chelsea currently in that third spot, assuming Man City are still banned. So, it's a pretty safe bet that Chelsea will get Champions League for next season. But even then, it's not guaranteed. But we'll see. It's a very interesting project under Lampard now that he has a very young squad that will grow into some big potentials. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how Lampard and Solskjaer do with their respective squads, because I would say they're kind of in the way their squads are set up, and obviously the inexperience of both managers, very similar. So it's going to be super interesting to see how those two managers go off once this season ends, and once they have, once they start to get more of the players they want. I think it'll be super interesting to see how those two teams and those two managers will end up doing in the future. But obviously, we mentioned Project Restart started yesterday. We got one, I would say not lousy games, but definitely not the most exciting ones. Aston Villa and Sheffield United definitely, we waited so long for a 0-0 game, and that's what we got with the Villa and Sheffield United. But the one controversial issue over there was Villa's goalkeeper, Nyland. At one point, the Sheffield United took a corner and Nyland grabbed the ball, or he got the ball from the air and got pushed into the back of his goal. And it was very clearly that the goal was like he was inside the goal and the goal should have went to Sheffield United, but the goal wasn't given. And the goal assistant technology that you may be wondering, why didn't they use it? Yeah, goal line technology. Apparently the goalkeeper, the Aston Villa defender, and some other player were blocking the view of the cameras. And because of that, it was the most odd and literally the most rarest of exemptions that literally they were blocking all of the cameras so that the camera could not go back and look and see whether the ball crossed the line. But I just find it very odd because you can clearly tell, just human eyes, that he literally crossed the line and the goal should have been given to Sheffield United. So controversy there. It's definitely, this is going to affect the bottom three, and this is also going to affect Sheffield United's chances to be potentially in a European spot. And I feel so bad for Sheffield United because they're not like, Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, where you kind of expect them to be back in this position next year. I mean, who knows? Maybe this is like a fluke season and they're doing so well right now. So I genuinely feel bad for Sheffield United. They definitely got robbed of 3 points yesterday. Yeah,
they literally it was like an act of God in terms of technology.
Suarez came down. Suarez.
This is apparently the first time in over 9,000 matches that the goal line technology system has failed.
That's just crazy. 9,000 matches.
And as Yash mentioned, it was very easy to tell from just the human eye looking at the camera angles that he went into the goal, like past the goal line. Like the goalie fell into the side netting while holding the ball. You can't fall into the side netting unless you're inside the goal. So, I mean, at that point, I feel like VAR should have reviewed that situation.
Yes,
because they could have pulled it back and given Sheffield United the goal. But ultimately, I don't know why. Maybe VAR was still on social distancing mode and just decided not to go hardball. But that is the incorrect decision, in my opinion, because it was ultimately a goal. Like if you go on Twitter, everyone was thinking the same thing, and that just put a bad taste in the mouth for everyone. It's like I'm glad to have waited so many months just to be disappointed again. It's like sports is back, y'all. So that was that kind of scenario. And then I know Yush in particular, in terms of things that kind of upset him, the fake crowd noise. Like,
Oh, it was pretty bad. It was definitely really bad. I think the Arsenal Man City game, the crowd noise was a little bit better, but this game, the first game back, oh my goodness, the crowd noise was atrocious. It didn't even sound correct. I mean, literally, there was one point in the first half where Villa had a random shot on goal, and it was not even close to going in. And literally, the fake crowd noise had the crowd going like, "Oh," like like one of those like when the crowd goes ooh and like Salah shoots and hits the crossbar. Like it was, they literally had that type of reaction to a shot that like it was a pea shooter to the goalkeeper.
it was
I'm like,
there's definitely someone in, the commentator's box that's just fiddling around with the voices, and then it's on that person's decision which sound to implement. So it'll depend on whatever game you're watching and whoever's in control of that little box, what sounds are going off. But apparently I heard that at least for NBA, like the National Basketball Association, they're going to be using NBA 2K noises for their games when they eventually come back.
I think I read somewhere that that Premier League was actually going to be using like EA, like FIFA, the FIFA noises and everything.
The Premier League would be using the equivalent of the EA Sports FIFA 20 noises. So like this is like a video game kind of noise. So because ultimately to get these noises in the first place, these game developers and curators had to go into these games when they actually had crowds, and they recorded these voices in person and then just put them in the game. So this would be the closest in terms of replicating that kind of crowd noise. But even then, the atmosphere is still not there. You can't just make noise and have like the same kind of atmosphere, because it'll just be ultimately decided on one person controlling all these voices and sounds. But in your opinion, do you think that these noises kind of help, or would you rather not have them and then just kind of have it be more natural, where it's just you can only hear the grunts and the cries from the players on the pitch?
Well, this is a hot take. I actually like the crowd noise. I am one of those few people that like the artificial crowd noise if it's done correctly. If you watched any of the Bundesliga games or some of the La Liga matches that happened last week or 2 weeks ago, the crowd noise that they implemented was really good. I mean, it felt really natural almost. It almost felt so well that the way the camera was set up and the way the crowd noise was going, that there were actual fans in the stadium. I thought the mixing was really well and it didn't feel out of place. So I think the Premier League released a statement and they said that they will get better. And it was just the first game was a little bit of a train. They didn't say train wreck, but it was a little bit rusty. But they said as the games go on, they'll definitely get better at the audio mixing for this. I like the crowd noise because it heightens up the atmosphere a little bit. But I know a lot of people really enjoy just kind of hearing the players talk and screaming, and you hear the ball going in the back of the net with no fans. I don't really like that because in the most of the time, I can't really hear what they're saying. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I can hear if the coach is yelling or barking orders at a player, or, what are the players saying when they're on the pitch. But most of the time, it's not like they have mics plugged into their shirts. So all I'm hearing really is just like screaming on like, oh, go there, go there. I'm like, that's literally all I'm hearing on my end if there's no noise. So I like a little bit of crowd noise. It makes the atmosphere a little bit better, I would say.
For me, it does sound a little much like when you go to your local park, like if there's no crowd noise and then all you hear is just the shouts and jeers from the players on the pitch and the coaches. Like it very much sounds like what you would hear from like a pickup game at your local park. It's just like just randomness and like random languages every once in a while too. And then, every once in a while someone will scream profanity, and I'm not sure they can censor that out in time, but it's like little things like that. I personally prefer, like, in most situations, I like it more natural. If there is a crowd, then, let there be crowd noise. But since this is like a very rare scenario where there's no one, I wouldn't mind if there, were a few games where it's just, let it be natural. Let's just hear what the players are saying. But, if there's like a balance, I think that's what I'm looking for. But if every game was like fake crowd noise or every game was no crowd noise, then I think that would be a little bothersome. But I think right now we're all going to move into the fake crowd noises. I think it will get better over time.
Yeah.
It's just now it's just a little awkward.
Yeah, and I would say this, if you're a US fan and you watch the games through NBC Sports, if you log in via their NBC Sports app, you actually have an option to watch the games with the artificial noise or with the natural sound. That's only if you're using their app. So for any of the US fans out there, that's a option out there if you don't want to listen to any artificial noise and you just want the natural sound. So it's definitely out there. But the next game, it was City versus Arsenal. I talked to a lot of Arsenal fans after the game, and they basically all told me that they expected to get thumped by City, and they were just waiting for it to happen. But, the bigger news, I would say, is David Luiz, man. Got sent off for basically being on for 20 minutes in that game. He got subbed on for Pablo Mari, who unfortunately news came out that he will be out for the rest of the season, and which is very unfortunate because I think it was his debut game, or this was his second game featuring for Arsenal. So it's unfortunate for him to get injured like that. But man, David Luiz comes on, gets sent off, and basically, that's how City score their penalty. But my gosh. I mean, if you weren't on Twitter, the memes were just all over the place for David Luiz. I mean, he was just getting roasted from every other fan across the nation. But my goodness, David Luiz, man, has to be one of the worst defenders in Arsenal history and probably Premier League history. I mean, my goodness, he's woeful.
I mean, the memes were going before he even stepped onto the pitch. And then once he got subbed on, it was like, oh, here we go. I wonder how many own goals he's going to score today. And then, boom, first thing, he sets one up for Sterling on a platter. And then, the rest is
history.
The rest is history. Just giving that red card, getting sent off. And now his contract is going to end on June 30th. And currently it is June 18th. He, according to Twitter at least, my probably not the best source, but he is banned for the next 3 matches. So that means he might not be in an Arsenal jersey for the rest of his career. And
Yikes.
I saw he chose to go on an interview, post-match interview with Sky Sports after the match, and kind of just spoke his words saying, it was my fault. That's all I want to say. And then there's questions towards him asking him, are you going to be back at Arsenal? And he said, I'd love to be here. That's why that's why I'm doing this interview.
I'd love to be a professional footballer,
I think he didn't realize that he probably should have fixed his contract a little earlier, because now he's in the mercy of Arsenal. It's like, you see all this? Your performance is terrible. It's like if you have a performance review, except for renewal of your own job, this is what you do right before that, evaluation. Geez. He's going to go to Crystal Palace at this point.
But or West Ham,
Arsenal. Just another London team that's just not really challenging for a European competition spot.
Oh my goodness,
consistently as Arsenal. But even Arsenal right now are 9th. So,
I mean, it's bad, and it's funny because a lot of good players are like, okay, I'll just play out my final year because I know I'll do really good, and you guys will be forced to give me a super huge contract. But my goodness. He probably did he took that scenario as okay, I got it. And then literally this whole season has just been, I don't got it.
I don't got it. Literally just a dumpster fire. But
oh my goodness.
David Luiz, I feel like in his entire career, he's just managed to, he's not been the best offender.
He just managed to score some weird long shots every now and then.
Crazy goals, but he just managed to get away with it. He just has some really good games, and then most of his other games are just really either atrocious. Okay or just not great.
I think we all saw when Brazil lost 7-1 to Germany. I think we all saw when Thiago Silva wasn't next to him, partnering up with him, he was a train wreck in that defense. He was all over the place. And I would say this, I feel like David Luiz, for the most of his career, kind of got away with being kind of that reckless guy because he played with players like John Terry, Thiago Silva. And once he moved to Arsenal, there was no, Van Dijk or Ferdinand or that anchor that could have just protect him. It was just Mustafi or Socrates, So if you have those two guys paired with David Luiz, it's not a formula for success. It's so bad. And I would say this for Arsenal, they need to stop buying washed up defenders. I'm talking Lichtsteiner, Socrates, David Luiz. Do not buy washed up defenders on the cheap. It's not a bargain. You may think oh, I'm saving some money on a guy that used to be, one of the best in the world. It's not worth it. Trust me, as a United fan, when we've bought a bunch of washed up midfielders, it's not worth it. Don't do it.
Maybe they
Don't
don't
do
have
it.
a choice, man. Maybe they don't have the financials.
Go. I would say this. I would rather than play Rob Holding, who's younger, and at least you can just like test him out in the water and just throw him in a bunch of games. And if he doesn't perform, so be it. Try to promote someone else in your academy, because at this point, you're much better off doing that and hoping that they end up becoming a little decent than going for a 34-year-old or a 33-year-old or 32-year-old David Luiz, Socrates, and Lichtsteiner and all that. Doesn't work.
And even like the David Luiz transfer, at least in particular, it was just very last minute. It was just, I believe, when it was announced,
deadline day,
it
right?
was like a deadline day kind of move, and
he moved from Chelsea too.
From Chelsea, it was like a Petr Cech kind of situation. So
I know.
I mean, it was really bizarre to even see in the first place. I was like, oh, okay, this is not what I would have done, but all right. I guess it gives them some depth, but
yeah,
I mean, ultimately now I feel like Arteta has someone or a position he definitely needs to fill.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I feel like the defense has been like the one position Arsenal, every person that's not even associated with Arsenal keeps telling them to fix, and they never fix it. They just keep signing attackers.
It's like literally it was as bad as Liverpool back in the days before we got,
oh my goodness,
Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk. It was literally before that time. And then I feel like this entire time has always been those two teams, except Liverpool actually managed to get a new defense. And then meanwhile, Arsenal just still picking up random things and hoping it works. But maybe under Arteta, there will be more planning and strategy moving forward. We'll see in the summer. Well, I guess we're in the summer now, but I don't know how the transfer window is really going to work. We'll see. Because, as there's not a economics podcast, but with the economy across the globe just like fluctuating and crashing at times, I don't know how that's going to determine, or if that's going to really affect teams in terms of how much money they spend this summer. It possibly could. I wouldn't be surprised, but that's something that we're gonna have to keep in mind now, because that's a loss of a chunk of TV money. That's a loss of owners' own income and revenue. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's Arsenal definitely have some tough planning period ahead, because there's just so much that just needs to be scrapped from that club, and they just need a fresh slate, like a fresh canvas to paint on. Too many bandages, too many tapes, too many random patches of work that have been patched up over the years. I feel like they just need a clean slate, and they just need to start brand new.
It sounds like a semi version of like Sunderland.
I
from
know.
the documentary. It's just like, man,
not as severe, but severe in its own way. In its own way. But my goodness.
I mean, Arsenal are the only team going through this kind of rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, like Manchester United, Chelsea. I mean, I feel like all the top teams in Premier League besides Liverpool and City are going through some sort of rebuild, even Tottenham. But quickly, I will say this with Arsenal. Mesut Ozil wasn't even in the team sheet, wasn't even included as a sub, which is quite interesting, because now you can have 4 subs in Premier League games now. So the fact that Mesut Ozil wasn't even included on the bench is a little frightening, I would say, for his future. Even though we keep talking about it, it's a little sad to see Mesut Ozil, the Mesut Ozil, dip down this much in form and ability. But that's something to kind of point out there. But quickly, tomorrow is Friday. Manchester United and Tottenham play. Who are you kind of predicting to win? The game is at Tottenham.
I don't even know there's a home field advantage at this point, because I mean, despite the crowd noises, that's like
it's only empty.
Yeah, and maybe there's the travel lag, I guess. I mean, if that's even a thing, if that really affects players, like the physical toll of just playing away. But I mean, at this point, I don't know if playing at home will have that as much of an advantage these days. I feel like it might be slightly neutral. Maybe playing on the same pitch might give you an advantage. But even despite all that, I think right now it gave a lot of teams an advantage to come back perhaps certain players come back from injury because of having 3 months off. So like certain players like Harry Kane, he's starting to come back. Son's coming back
from military service.
Yeah, from military service. some big news going
and
on.
then like even United, like Pogba will probably be on the bench. Rashford is coming back. He was injured.
Mhm.
Martial's fit. I mean, there's every Premier League team I feel like is definitely they've got their players back.
Yeah. So it's gonna be a lot of different teams coming back into the season now, and it's gonna be a little bit difficult to predict. Like City, they looked like they haven't really skipped a beat, but I wouldn't really be surprised given Pep has probably a very rigid training regimen, even despite having COVID be a thing. So for this game in particular, it's gonna be. I'm going to say 1-1 because given what we saw from the results and
It's gonna be
yesterday,
rusty.
and also just the results from Bundesliga and La Liga, unless you're Messi or unless you're a team
Not even Ronaldo
not
in
even
Italy.
Ronaldo. Yeah.
I would say they lost to Coppa Italia to Napoli.
So it's like no one's immune to
Yes.
the rustiness and not playing for 3 months. So
Mhm.
I don't like the players aren't like in preseason kind of shape or form. Some players potentially are, like apparently like Luka Doncic of like the Dallas Mavericks is, but like for soccer players it kind of varies as well.
Yeah.
But for this game, I think it'll be 1-1 because I think it'll just be slightly rusty, and then that intensity might not be there immediately. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw.
Oh man, you know me. I already gonna say 2-1 United. Come on, you got to predict the Manchester United win. It'll be fun to watch this game because I was really looking forward to it after United beat City before the whole lockdown and delay of play happened. But it's gonna be super exciting to watch this match just because Pogba's back, Rashford's back. It's going to be very fun. And then on Tottenham, they have like pretty much their full squad with Kane and Son back. It's going to be really fun to watch. So I'm super excited. It's going to be sloppy, but it'll be fun to watch. I will say that. But yeah, that kind of wraps up season 3, episode 77 for us. Please make sure to rate, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Please follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. We have been stepping up our Twitter game a lot now that we both graduated. We definitely, well, at least for me, I have like now that I'm currently looking for full-time jobs, I have more time to dedicate to the Twitter and the social media pages. So I'm trying my best to put out more graphics and just be on the conversation for Twitter during games. So please give us a follow if you want some friendly banter and some cool graphics to be on the side and this great podcast to come alongside with it. So yeah, please give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. You follow us on our YouTube page, subscribe to us there. We'll definitely be posting videos, our full podcast on there as well. Trying out new videos soon. That is the goal. So once we do that, obviously we'll have the video version up on there as well. But yeah, follow us on all those platforms and please give us topics to talk about. Please reach out to us, ask us any questions you want. We'll definitely give you a shout out on the podcast and we'll definitely try to answer them on our show. So yeah, please give us a shout on Twitter and everything. Best place to ask us questions really. But
and even for the next few weeks, we got some guests lined up. So
yes,
we will announce those shortly, and then we can also have you all ask us questions we can ask them. So just be on the lookout for that. Those guests will definitely be a fun time. And like we said, we're trying our best to get more guests on the show. So yeah, just be on the lookout for all of that. But yeah, thank you again for all the support that you've given us throughout this entire journey. And now that we're on season 3, we're off to continue what we're doing and, make it a little bit better each step of the way, trying to move the needle forward little by little. But yeah, that kind of does it for us for season 3, episode 77. Thank you guys so much. Peace.